There's a phrase making the rounds in Washington this week, one that our sources are using to describe the mood in the Persian Gulf. They're calling this new White House directive a message that landed like a storm siren.
It's a very dramatic phrase, but I think it fits. I mean, this isn't some standard diplomatic cable we're talking about.
No, not at all.
This is an operational order, and it fundamentally changes the rules for American ships in one of the most volatile waterways on the planet.
We are talking, of course, about the Strait of Hormuz. And the directive itself is, well, it's pretty blunt. American flagged ships have to steer clear of Iranian waters,
Right.
but it goes way beyond just stay in your lane. The order explicitly tells civilian ship captains to ignore any boarding commands they get from Tehran's forces.
Which is just a huge, huge deviation from normal maritime protocol.
Right.
Usually, if a patrol boat from a sovereign nation hails you and tells you to stop, you stop. You cut your engines. That's just the rule for safety, for legal reasons.
Right.
So telling a civilian crew to essentially, ignore a military order.
It suggests something else is going on.
It suggests the White House has very specific, very credible intelligence that Iran isn't just looking to, say, inspect cargo.
I think Iran is looking for leverage.
The assessment is that Tehran wants a hostage. They want to seize a U.S. vessel, hold it, and use it as a bargaining chip in this whole standoff.
So the thinking in Washington is if you stop, you're a target.
You're a sitting duck. Exactly. If you keep moving, you're a harder target and you buy time for the cavalry to show up.
And this turns the Strait of Hormuz from just a busy shipping lane into what our source material calls a front line.
Yeah.
Before we dig into the military hardware and the politics, we really need to talk about the incident that proved this wasn't just a theory. I mean, this week it actually happened. We saw a very tense confrontation with the U.S. flag tanker, the Stena Imperative.
And that's the event that really brought that storm siren warning into focus. So the Stena Imperative, it was just doing its thing, transiting north of Oman. It's a totally standard route for tankers leaving the Gulf.
But they weren't alone out there.
Yeah.
The report says they were being shadowed. And not by a single ship, which is interesting. It was 3 pairs of boats.
6 boats in total.
Right.
And we should be really specific here about who these boats belong to. This wasn't the regular Iranian Navy.
No.
These were boats from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC.
And for anyone who might think those two are interchangeable, that distinction is critical here. The regular Navy is, a conventional military force.
Right.
The IRGC is the ideological guardian of the revolution. They're generally better equipped for this kind of asymmetric warfare, and historically, they've been much more aggressive in these waters.
And you see that aggression in their tactics here. This wasn't a polite escort. The IRGC boats, they swarmed the tanker. They got on the VHF radio, channel 16, which everybody's monitoring.
Of course.
And they demanded that the Stena Imperative stop immediately.
So this is it. This is the moment where that new directive gets a real-world test. You're a civilian captain, you're looking at your radar, and you see 6 armed fast attack craft closing in on you.
Your instinct has to be self-preservation, which normally means you comply.
But the captain of the Stena Imperative didn't. He didn't stop.
He held his nerve. He just refused the order and kept his course, kept his speed. And that is a massive gamble.
You're betting they won't actually open fire.
You're betting the IRGC is not ready to start a war right then and there over your tanker.
And in this case, that gamble paid off.
Yeah.
Because he refused to stop, it gave U.S. warship time to move in and escort the tanker to safety.
That escort is the only thing that prevented this from becoming a full-blown hostage crisis. But then look at what happened right after. The story just split in 2.
Instantly.
British maritime monitors, the UK maritime trade operations, they confirmed it. They saw it. They logged it. They opened an investigation.
Meanwhile, what does the Iranian media say? They claim the vessel had just, quote, strayed into their waters without permits and then left without any security event.
It's a classic move. Just deny, deny, deny. By saying it was just a navigational mistake, they try to make the U.S. look like it's overreacting, but Washington is not buying it. They're openly saying that was a failed seizure attempt, plain and simple.
And this whole incident, the Stena Imperative, it's really a perfect microcosm of the bigger tension, isn't it? You've got the small, fast boats of the IRGC on one side and the heavy deterrence of the U.S. Navy on the other.
Right. And let's maybe zoom out to that architecture of deterrence, as the source calls it, the USS Abraham Lincoln is on patrol in the North Arabian Sea.
And we should probably clarify what a carrier strike group actually is. It's not just the one big ship.
No, not at all. It's the floating airfield, sure, but it's also the guided missile destroyers sailing with it. And those ships are loaded with Tomahawk cruise missiles.
Which are land attack weapons.
Yeah.
They aren't for ship-to-ship fights. They're designed for surgical strikes against targets on the ground. Command centers, radar sites, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And you pair that capability with a major surge of activity at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. We're seeing more fighters, surveillance drones, and, this is crucial, refueling planes.
So why do the refueling planes matter so much? If the carrier's right there, why do you need tankers in the air?
It's about reach and persistence. A fighter jet can only stay in the air for so long on its own fuel. If you want that jet to be able to loiter over a target area for hours, or if you need it to strike deep inside Iran and get back safely,
You need to be able to top off the tank midair.
you need air-to-air refueling. Their presence tells you the U.S. is planning for sustained operations, not just a quick little skirmish off the coast.
And then there's a really big one mentioned in the reports, the B-52 bombers.
The Stratofortress, I mean, it's a Cold War icon, but it serves a very specific role today, both tactical and psychological. You don't send B-52s for a minor scuffle.
It's a strategic message.
It's a huge strategic message. It tells Tehran that the U.S. can hit any target, anywhere in the country, without putting its assets in immediate danger.
And this is what defense officials are calling the architecture for strikes.
That phrase is so deliberate. It means the gun is on the table, it's loaded, and the safety is off. They're just waiting to see if anyone pulls the trigger.
And in the middle of all this military maneuvering, you have this very strange diplomatic visit. Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff flew out to the region, and they actually visited the USS Abraham Lincoln.
And that image is just incredibly powerful. I mean, normally diplomats try to keep some distance from the military hardware, right, to keep the talking channels open.
Sure.
Here you have U.S. envoys literally conducting diplomacy from the deck of an aircraft carrier.
Diplomacy under the shadow of American firepower, as one report put it.
It could not be clearer. It's sending the message that the diplomatic track and the military track are now one and the same. This is coercive diplomacy. It's, we're here to talk, but just look over my shoulder at what happens if the talking doesn't work.
And it seems the talking is really focused on one thing. President Trump's rhetoric was strong. He said Iran's supreme leader should be very worried. But he tied the threat of force to one specific condition.
The failure of nuclear talks. That's the red line. As dangerous as this cat-and-mouse game in the Strait is, the big existential issue for the White House is still the nuclear program.
So they're signaling that if those talks completely collapse,
then that military option, that architecture we just talked about, becomes the backup plan.
So is that what this naval harassment is about with the Stena Imperative? Is that Iran's way of pushing back against that pressure?
I think it's all about leverage. You have to see the Strait of Hormuz not just as a body of water, but as an economic artery. About a fifth of the entire world's oil supply goes through that tiny choke point.
To the global economy, it's a lifeline. To Iran, it's a pressure valve they can squeeze.
Exactly. And IRGC commanders have been very open about this. They have threatened to shut the Strait down completely if the U.S. launches strikes. They know they can't win a conventional war against the U.S. Navy.
They can't stop a B-52.
No. But they can make the economic consequences of a war so painful for the entire world that maybe, just maybe, the U.S. hesitates.
It's their own form of asymmetric deterrence. You break our country, we break the global economy.
And that gets us right back to those small boats. $1 billion supertanker is almost helpless against a swarm of cheap, fast speedboats armed with mines or RPGs. It's a very cost-effective way for Iran to make its point.
Which explains the game of chicken feel to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the timeline, the warning to ships, the incidents, the B-52s arriving, the diplomatic visit to the carrier, it just feels like things are speeding up.
One source used the word countdown, and it's really hard to disagree with that. You're seeing this this convergence of all the signs that usually come right before conflict.
Like the messages President Trump was sending directly to the Iranian people.
Yes. That's a classic information operations tactic. You try to drive a wedge between the population and the regime. It's part of preparing the ground, so to speak.
And you add that to satellite images showing new squadrons moving into place.
Every single piece of information is pointing in the same direction. The military assets are shifting from what you'd call a deterrence posture to a strike posture. The difference is subtle, but it's absolutely critical.
So deterrence is about being seen.
Right. Strike posture is about being ready to go now.
And the question hanging over everything is intent. Is this whole buildup just the world's most expensive, dangerous bluff to force Iran back to the negotiating table? Or has the machine gotten too big to stop?
And that's the ultimate danger of brinksmanship. You can build all this up with the genuine intention of never using it, just to scare the other guy. But with nervous tanker crews, ambitious IRGC commanders, and everyone on high alert, the risk of an accident, of a miscalculation, just goes through the roof.
A stray radar blip or a misunderstood radio call like we saw? I mean, if the captain of the Stena Imperative had panicked or if a U.S. escort had fired a warning shot that went astray,
we would be having a very, very different conversation today. The margin for error in the Strait of Hormuz has essentially disappeared.
it is a really sobering thought. We're watching this incredible stare down where one side is holding a lit match and the other is standing in a pool of gasoline.
And the tragedy of it is that both sides probably believe they're acting defensively. The U.S. believes it's defending global trade and stopping a nuclear threat. Iran believes it's defending its sovereignty from economic attack.
And when both sides feel like they're backed into a corner, getting them to back down becomes almost impossible.
It does.
Okay, let's try to boil this down for everyone listening. We've gone from speedboats to B-52s. If you had to pick the 3 key things to take away from this, what would they be?
Number 1, the rules have changed, period. If you are on a U.S.-flagged ship in the Gulf, your orders are now basically wartime-adjacent protocols. Do not stop, do not comply. That order alone tells you how real Washington thinks this threat is.
And second, that threat is real. It's not theoretical.
Absolutely not. The Stena Imperative incident proved that. The IRGC is actively trying to stop U.S. vessels. That friction on the front line is happening right now.
And the third point, I think, has to be the sheer scale of the American military response.
It's not just a carrier group on patrol. It is the full architecture for strikes being put into place. The bombers, the destroyers loaded with tomahawks, the logistical tail to support a real conflict. The hardware is there. It's ready.
Which brings us back to that very uncomfortable final thought from our source material. As we watch all of this unfold, the diplomats on the carriers, the tankers dodging speedboats,
the question just hangs there. Is the countdown to war already running and we just haven't realized it yet? You know, history is filled with conflicts that everyone thought was avoidable right up until the first shot was fired. We could be living in those last few quiet days right now.
A heavy thought to end on, but an essential one to grasp at the stakes. We will obviously keep watching the Strait and the signals coming from both Washington and Tehran.
We will indeed.
Thanks for breaking down all the complex layers of this for us. And to you, our listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. Stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next one.